How to Triumph Over Guilt by Joseph Murphy. Every man must have a sense of self-esteem. He must approve of the self within him and give honor to the qualities, attributes, and potencies of God. God dwells in all men, and the self of each man is the presence and power of God. Each man must feel that he is wanted and loved, that he is adequate to every task, that he is needed in the scheme of life, and that he is fulfilling his role in the universe. Man is here to express himself fully and feel a sense of worthwhileness and security in his oneness with God. Inasmuch as man lives with himself all the time, he must learn to like himself. Unless man exalts, magnify, amplify, or intensify the God self within him, he will feel inferior, inadequate, insecure, and will perhaps consider himself as a sinner. No man can be happy who considers himself a sinner. There is deep psychological and spiritual necessity for self-esteem in the hearts of all men throughout the world. Down through the ages, many ceremonies, rituals, and methods have been invented for the express purpose of banishing the feeling of sin and guilt which have engulfed the masses. The sense of guilt is called a mental disease. Disease means not at ease, and is extremely common. In the field of modern psychomatics and psychiatric medicine, it is clearly pointed out that a deep sense of guilt, coupled with frustration, lies in back of most of our mental disorders and consequently back of the personality conflicts and bodily diseases as well as business and home conditions. The sense of guilt is abnormal and unnatural, even though it seems to be almost universal. For example, a child is not born with a sense of guilt. The feeling of guilt is imposed from without by the world and external influences, usually by parents, teachers, and nurses, also known as social heredity, together with the beliefs of the race mind. All of us know that a baby has no sense of sin. The baby's first feeling of guilt comes when he senses that mother is angry or displeased with him. His mother is more or less a god to him. Moreover, she represents authority and law. He is dependent upon his mother for food, comfort, love, and security. When we were born into the world, we had little or no sense of true values. As children, we knew nothing about man-made religions, creeds, dogmas, or customs, or man-made laws, rules, and regulations. In the beginning, the child is like a little animal and is free from inhibitions and does what seems to be natural. But mother may scold him or perhaps punish him by slapping him because her beliefs, whether right or wrong, create judgment. She may say to him that he is a bad boy and that God will punish him. The child does not understand and is baffled. Instinctively, the child feels himself cut off from love, from security, from a sense of kindness and givingness. The child feels that he is punished for something which he does not understand, becomes confused, and concludes that he must be bad. Shame. He has his first feeling of guilt and of being a sinner. He is perplexed and proceeds to protect himself. Instinctively, he reacts to his mother's reprimand or display of anger in different ways. He may become fearful, or he may fight back in his own way by going into a tantrum because of the inner conflict. The child's failure to get his desires satisfied, where these are contrary to the wishes of his parents, and later contrary to religious, social, and state laws and customs, deepens his sense of guilt and sin. Instinctively, he wants to do that which seems natural to him, but authority says no. The result is some conflict with authority. The other day I was in a home, and the little child there admired a ring on my finger and grasped it. His mother let the child know, in no uncertain terms, that he could not have the ring, and he began to cry. Later on, the child will have to learn that he can get what he wants in life through divine law and order, without infringing on the rights of others. As the child grows in wisdom and understanding, he will acquiesce in good grace with the restrictions of laws and customs, and he will manipulate his way through life successfully. The cosmic urge to express is within all of us, and When we express ourselves in such a way that we feel satisfied in our achievements and accomplishments and our creations, we are happy. When we err and fail in life, we feel unhappy and depressed. We begin to think that we are outside the love and esteem of others. Part 2. The purpose of this book is to show man how he can satisfy the true desires of his heart without taking advantage of others. Every man comes into the world to lead the abundant life. I am come that they might have life and have it more abundantly. John 10:10. This is a mental and spiritual universe, and what man wants can be claimed, appropriated, and accepted mentally. Man must open his mind and heart, subconscious mind, to the realization that God, who gave him the desire, will also reveal to him the perfect way for its manifestation. Man must believe in his heart, accept the reality of his idea or desire in his mind, be thankful for it, and, in spite of appearances, conditions, or circumstances, he must know that the living Spirit Almighty will respond, creating his goal of health, happiness, peace, and fulfillment of his dreams in divine law and order. Man's sense of oneness with a God of love, who is his heavenly Father, will banish all sense of guilt and shame. In ancient times, people sacrificed their bullocks, lambs, goats, and doves to propitiate what they superstitiously believed were the gods of wrath. When storms came, crops were ruined, or a great drought prevailed, the people believed the gods were angry. Their jungle priest had to give the people an answer. If he did not give the people what they believed to be a plausible answer, they killed him. Therefore, the jungle priests gave answers which satisfied the superstitious imaginings of these people. In bygone ages, man realized that he was subject to forces over which he seemed to have no control. The sun gave him heat, but it also scorched the earth. The fire burned him, thunder terrified him, the water flooded his lands, and his cattle were drowned. His idea of external power was his primitive and fundamental belief of God. He conceived for these elements, or forces of nature, love or aversion, and fear and hope gave rise to the first idea of religion. Primitive man, in his infantile reasoning with himself, perceived that when another man, stronger than he, was about to injure him, he was able to bribe him or offer him certain gifts and in other ways abase himself, thereby mollifying the other's attitude. From this crude reasoning, he proceeded to supplicate the intelligence of the winds, the stars, and the waters, hoping that they would hear him and answer his prayers. He proceeded to make offerings and sacrifices to the gods of the wind and the rain. The first men conceived the universe to be filled with innumerable gods. Their ideas of God were divided according to the sensations of pleasure and pain, and derived solely from the forces of nature. They divided the gods and genii into beneficent and malignant powers, hence the universality of these two ideas in all systems of religion. From this brief review of the origin and cause of guilt, we will go into the specific instances of guilt. Some months ago, a mother visited me with her boy, who was 8 years old. He micturated, or wet the bed, every night. I asked him why. The boy responded, "I want to drown my mother." Actually, he was drowning his mother in resentment. In his religious training, he had learned that it is wrong to hate or resent anyone, and he felt a deep sense of guilt. He complained about his mother, saying that when she was angry, she would upbraid him. "You little brat, you are a sinner. You are a naughty boy. God is going to punish you. You are going to suffer for this." Then the little boy added, "She never says anything to my brother." I had the mother change her attitude, and she ceased criticizing her son. She told him that she loved him, cared for him, and that he was absolutely equal in her eyes with his brother. The mother learned a simple truth. Children grow in the image and likeness of the dominant mental atmosphere of the home. She prayed frequently as follows: "John is God's son. He is loving, kind, and cooperative. He is growing in wisdom, understanding, and harmony, and I radiate love, peace, joy, and goodwill to him. I picture him as radiant, joyous, and happy. God's love fills his mind and body. He sleeps in peace every night and wakes in joy. God loves him and cares for him. He is healed, made whole, and perfect." A complete healing followed in a week's time. Her prayers were felt subconsciously by her son, and he responded accordingly. A 16-year-old boy came to see me. He was in trouble with the police, his teachers, the neighbors, and he resented his parents. He was in trouble with the police, his teachers, and the neighbors, and he resented his parents. His father was cruel and tyrannical, and occasionally beat his mother. The boy was reacting by becoming hostile, belligerent, and resentful. His rage toward his father was suppressed and became a festering sore. I explained to him that the reason he was opposed to authority was because he was psychologically fighting a father image. His teachers and local policemen were symbols of authority. I succeeded in getting the father and son together. They aired their hostility and anger toward each other, and they realized they were both wrong. Father, mother, and son gathered together each night and prayed sincerely for each other's peace, harmony, joy, and understanding. As they continued radiating love, peace, and goodwill to each other, the entire pattern of the home life changed, and the young boy is now getting along marvelously well in high school. Prayer changes things. Part 3. The President of the United States is subject to authority. Congress has power over him. We have to live and adjust to authority. Wherever we go, there is authority. We must learn to establish control over our thoughts, feelings, and responses. We must take charge of our own minds. When we do take charge of this motley crew in our minds and say to them, I am the master, I am going to order my thoughts around and tell them what to give attention to. We will be like an employer ordering his employees to execute his instructions. Man must take charge of his own mind and not permit others to govern it for him. Creed, dogma, tradition, superstition, fear, and ignorance rule the mind of the average man. The average man does not know his own mind at all. It does not belong to him. It is oftentimes ruled over and governed by the rank of superstitions of others. We must realize a great sense of guilt comes from what is called conscience. A great number of people think that the voice of conscience is that of God. It is not. Conscience is your inner feeling and the voice of someone else. Oftentimes, it is the voice of ignorance, fear, superstition, falsehoods, and a weird concept of God. I knew a boy who feared that he would be punished by God because he did not go to church on Sunday. This is the inner voice of superstition and false belief implanted in his subconscious by his parents or teachers. This belief on the part of the boy gave him a sense of guilt, and he felt that he must be punished. When you were young, you were given taboos, restrictions, homilies, and a series of don'ts. You were perhaps told that you were evil, a sinner, and that God would punish you. Perhaps you were told of a lake of fire waiting for you if you did not behave and believe in a particular creed. The minds of children are contaminated and polluted with all kinds of strange notions and false doctrines. A young boy said to me, if I ride my bicycle without lights, I would feel that I must be punished, that I must fall because my mother said, you will fall. You are going to be hurt. You are naughty. You are going to be punished. What a disastrous thing to tell a boy. It would be so much better to tell him that he should not ride a bicycle at night without lights. Mother and father should explain thoroughly to the boy that the instructions are for his own good, for his own self-preservation. It is much better to tell a boy that God's love will always take care of him rather than frighten him with dreadful, hypnotic suggestions of danger. Children should never be told that they were born in iniquity and conceived in sin. They should be taught that they are children of God, that God is their real Father, and that God is love. They should be taught also that love cannot do anything unloving. Of course, this is the good conscience, where the boy is taught the golden rule, love of others, and that honesty is the best policy. When a boy is about to steal, there is that within him which tells him, no, you shouldn't do that. The mother and father are there to teach the child the difference between the skunk and the cat, the difference between what is right and what is wrong. The child has to go to school, he has to learn manners and be indoctrinated properly. He learns what is right, true, noble, and godlike. Yet how many are taught these qualities today? To teach children that they are born with the stain of original sin because Adam and Eve sinned is ecclesiastical verbiage and out of place altogether in the modern interpretation of life. Original sin really means that man has forgotten his divine origin and takes the commandments and superstitions of men for the truths of God. Every child in the world is born into the race mind and all that his environment represents. That is also one of the meanings of original sin. When you learn the laws of your mind and your own divinity, you are no longer subject to the taboos, restrictions, false beliefs, and corrupt indoctrination we receive in our youth. If you want to cleanse your children's minds, practice the presence of God in the home. Think godlike thoughts, and the home will be saturated with a lovely mood or atmosphere. You will see the child grow in the image and likeness of the dominant mood of the home. This is the real meaning of baptism. If you have a glass of dirty water, you may condemn it, resent, and curse it indefinitely, but you will not get clean water. However, if you continually pour clean water into the glass, you will have clean water. Many people are full of guilt because they failed to visit their father or mother prior to their transition to the next dimension. Their statements are somewhat as follows. "Oh, I mistreated my mother before she passed on. My husband died and I was all out of time. I did not forgive my father, and now he is dead and gone." The Bible gives you the answer and teaches you how to forgive yourself and others. The first thing you must realize is that there is no time or space in the mind principle. This very moment, you can relax mentally and think of your mother whom you believe you wronged in some way. Imagine that you were talking to her. Tell her how lovely and beautiful she is and how much you love her. Exalt her in your mind and realize the presence of God is there and that His love, light, truth, and beauty are flowing through her. Realize also that she is alive with the life of God. Live in this imaginary scene until you get the fragrant reaction which fills your soul with joy. Continue to dramatize this mental scene and the reaction will come and you will feel free. Your mother will also be free. The action of God has taken place and your mother will forget all about the incident, and so will you. A complete healing will follow this procedure. If you made a recording of your talk on a tape machine, you could erase it. In the same manner, you can erase these psychic traumas from your subconscious mind by impressing on your subconscious the spiritual truths of God. The new vibratory tone of your thoughts erases the old negative pattern of thought in your subconscious. Part 4. A man said to me recently, "My conscience is my guide." He was writing vitriolic articles attacking a certain religious group. I explained to him the workings of his deeper mind. He realized that his biases, hatreds, and superstitious patterns were planted in his subconscious mind when he was young, and that his mental conditioning was the reason for his resentment, hostility, and antagonism toward other religious groups. Many people have become victims of a ruthless superstition and ignorant biases. Following the voice of conscience has ruined the lives of many people. One man I knew said, "I hear a voice inside me urging me to kill my mother-in-law." The voice he heard was real enough, like the voices and scenes you hear in dreams. The subconscious mind is always dramatizing the impressions we make upon it. It is our book of life, which keeps a record of all our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. I explained to him that this constant hatred and resentment of his mother-in-law was murder in his own heart, and that his evil and destructive thoughts were constantly sinking down into his mind and would eventually saturate the subconscious with the idea of murder. The subconscious acts by reacting, and the law of the subconscious is one of compulsion. Therefore, he would eventually commit the murder. The voices he heard were those of his own subconscious talking back to him. My explanation was the cure. He blessed and prayed for his mother-in-law. They became good friends, and she calls him my son. Those who put thousands of Protestants to death in the days of the Spanish Inquisition did so in the name of conscience. This conscience represented religious hatred and bigotry. Scholars and archaeologists have definite evidence that parents in ancient Babylon stoned children to death because of some minor infraction of certain laws and rules which they promulgated. Many people walking the street today are victims of neurotic conscience. The patterns of conscience vary within different religions, racial, and social influences. You must learn to differentiate between what you call conscience and the voice of God. God always speaks in peace and never in confusion. The voice of God is always constructive, harmonious, and peaceful. The voice and intimations of the divine are always lifeward, tending towards the life more abundant. Whenever you have an urge to go against the laws of life, such as the Golden Rule, the Ten Commandments, or Paul's epistle in the 13th chapter of Corinthians, you know very well that it cannot be the voice of truth or God. A young girl came to me, stating that she had washed her hands about 100 times a day, and that she was always afraid of some infection. This girl was a Catholic, and her husband was of the Jewish faith. They were quite happy together until she began receiving letters from her mother that she had done great evil and added religious threats plus moral condemnation. I explained to the girl that love knows no creed, race, or sectarian group. Love transcends all creeds. Furthermore, she realized that no one could break up her marriage when love reigned supreme. She learned to laugh at herself for being so upset. She understood why her mother was brainwashed with religious taboos, prejudices, and strictures of all kind, and that she was writing from the standpoint of superstition, bias, and ignorance, and not from the standpoint of God or truth. In God, there is no Greek or Jew, no bound or free, no Catholic or Protestant, Hindu or atheist. God has no religion and knows nothing about creeds, dogmas, and man-made opinions. This young lady learned to pray and imagined that she had a letter from her mother which was full of love, kindness, and goodwill. I told her the story of Orage, a disciple of P.D. Uspensky, who taught his students as follows. Compose a letter written as from our friend to yourself, which could completely satisfy you if you received it. Put into exact words what you would like your friend to write or say to you. Every night she would embrace her mother in her imagination and radiate love, peace, and joy to her. Then she would read the imaginary letter from her mother, which filled her soul with joy. She continued to do this for about 3 weeks every night, and at the end of that time, she received a letter from her mother apologizing for her previous letters and containing almost the exact words which she had been picturing, feeling, and rejoicing each night. In many parts of the world, men have several wives. This is the religious custom or tradition. Our Bible teaches that love is an at-one-ment, or a union of two souls seeking their way back to the heart of reality. If an American or Englishman had several wives, his conscience might destroy him because of his sense of guilt. A woman in this country would not want to be one of several wives. She would probably feel guilty and get seriously ill mentally and physically. Howbeit in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. For laying aside the commandments of God, ye hold the traditions of men. In these few verses tersely put, we have the answer to the guilt complexes of millions of supposedly religious and intelligent people. Do the dead thoughts and doctrinal wrappings and trappings of your parents and grandparents rule and govern you? Or are you controlled by God and His spiritual truths? Learn the great law of life. God is life, and this life seeks expression through you as beauty, harmony, joy, love, order, rhythm, and abundance. The kingdom of God is within you. Infinite intelligence will lead and guide you in all your ways when you turn to it and call upon it. The morals of the people vary throughout the world and are of a geographical nature. These are based on the mores and traditional concepts of the particular country or race. The moral standards of the various cultures are true only when they conform to the principle of life, which is forever seeking to express itself through us as harmony, health, peace, joy, symmetry, and the life more abundant. It was the voice of conscience which caused the people 2,000 years ago to say to Jesus that he should not heal on the Sabbath. These thoughts, traditional beliefs, are contrary to the laws of life and are definitely evil and destructive. Do you say to your children, your parents have the only truth for you. You must believe what we say. You must never think for yourself. You must accept our dogma. This is disastrous, utterly dictatorial, and a totalitarian attitude. It may well be the case that everything you are teaching them is a lie, and they will grow up so conditioned that when they violate any of these foolish and grotesque taboos which you gave them, they will have guilt complexes and be seized with fear, and then proceed to punish themselves. There are women and men who live in hatred of one another and who are hopelessly incompatible because they are afraid to get a divorce due to religious beliefs. They are full of guilt and believe that God should punish them. They are victims of early training in superstitious dogma, implanted in their minds by the bigoted propensities of parents and others. They would rather live the lie than have the decency to break up the lie. They say, "Whom God hath joined together, let no man put asunder." God is love, and if love does not unite the two hearts of the man and the woman, the marriage is a mockery, a farce, a sham, and a masquerade. Many people are full of guilt because they accept as right that which is actually wrong. God condemns no one. God has already forgiven you. Forgive yourself. Change your thought and keep it changed. Think on whatsoever things are true, just, noble, and of good report. Think from the standpoint of the golden rule and the law of love. Would you think of disobeying the principles of chemistry, physics, mathematics, and engineering? Would you build a wheel off-center? Are you believing in antiquated, dead, grotesque, ignorant superstitions and prejudices in the name of religious beliefs, or have you made a serious inquiry into the workings of your subconscious and conscious mind? The modern scientist has to conform to natural law. He cannot change it. Your religion must also conform to natural law. The result is conscience with knowing. The law of life is the law of health, happiness, peace, order, beauty, right action, and abundance. Divine order is heaven's first law. Remember you not the former things, neither consider the things of old. Isaiah 43:18. Forgetting those things which are behind, and reaching forth unto those things which are before, press toward the mark for the prize. Philippians 3:12-14. And enter into the glorious liberty of the sons of God.